Okay, hi everybody. So we are gonna get ready to do some more reading of part 2 of the Odyssey. So I'm gonna be taking you through some of the episodes. We'll review, I'll read it to you, we'll ask questions, all that good stuff. So you can have your version open in front of you or next to you, or you can just read along with me because I'm gonna share my screen with you, and then you'll be able to see you will be able to see what I'm seeing, and that will be the text of the Odyssey. So, oh, not that. I want you to see that. All right, so hopefully you guys can see everything that I am seeing. Make it a little bit bigger for you. There we go. All right, so the Odyssey part 2, the return of Odysseus. So we have a little intro here. 20 years gone, and I am back again. Odysseus has finished telling his story to the Phaeacians. Next day, young Phaeacian noblemen conduct him home by ship. He arrives in Ithaca after an absence of 20 years. The goddess Athena appears and informs him of the situation at home. Numerous suitors, believing Odysseus to be dead, have been continually seeking the hand of his wife Penelope in marriage, while overrunning Odysseus's palace and enjoying themselves at Penelope's expense. Moreover, they are planning to murder Odysseus' son Telemachus before he can inherit his father's lands. So we have to remember now that Telemachus is like 20 or about to be 20, and that Penelope has been living this life where she is obviously faithful to Odysseus. We know that as one of her defining qualities. But there's a bunch of dudes in her house. Like there are suitors, meaning people who are there to like court her and ask her to marry them. And they've been living in their house and eating their food. And when they say the word overrunning Odysseus's house, it makes us really feel like they are not very welcome there. So I want you to think for a second, why is it that Odysseus would allow these people in his house, but or not Odysseus, why would Penelope allow these people to remain in her house if she does not want them there? So have a little think about that for a sec. So hopefully you've given yourself time to come up with some sort of thought on that. And if you think back to our discussion about To Kill a Mockingbird, and when we were talking about things like class and race and gender, you might have come across the idea that Penelope is in fact that she does not really have the right as a woman to kick these people out of her house. Well, who would? Odysseus, but everyone's assuming that he's dead except for his wife and son. And Telemachus himself would be the next best thing to a man of the house. So that would explain why the suitors want him gone and out of there and why they're planning to murder him, because he would be the only one that would be able to boot them out. So I'm going to share my screen with you again, and we'll continue reading. So we left off right about here. Telemachus, who like Penelope still hopes for his father's return, has journeyed to Pylos and Sparta to learn what he can about his father's fate. Athena disguises Odysseus as a beggar and directs him to the hut of Eumaeus, his old and faithful swineherd. While Odysseus and Eumaeus are eating breakfast, Telemachus arrives. Athena then appears to Odysseus. So picture, please, Odysseus and his son sitting across from each other eating breakfast, but neither one of them are really reuniting, right? Odysseus is disguised as some old beggar man, and Telemachus does not know that it's his father who he's eating breakfast with, nor does the other guy who's there, Eumaeus, and refers to Eumaeus as Odysseus's old and faithful swineherd. Now we know swine are pigs. So this guy used to work for Odysseus. He was his employee, and he has proven himself to be a faithful worker of Odysseus, even though he's been gone for so long. So they're all sitting around having breakfast until Athena shows up and kind of motions for Odysseus to follow her. So that's where we're at. From the air she walked, taking the form of a tall woman, handsome and clever at her craft, and stood beyond the gate in plain sight of Odysseus, unseen, though, by Telemachus, unguessed, For not to everyone will the gods appear. Odysseus noticed her, and so did the dogs, who cowered whimpering away from her. She only nodded, singing to him with her brows, a sign he recognized. Crossing the yard, he passed out through the gate into the stockade to face the goddess. There, she said to him, "Son of Laertes and the gods of old, Odysseus, master of landways and seaways, dissemble to your son no longer now. The time has come. Tell him how you together will bring doom on the suitors in the town. I shall be not far distant then, for I myself desire battle." So Athena beckons Odysseus off to the side and says, hey, dissemble to your son no longer. And if you did vocab, you know that the word dissemble means to hide or disguise or to be sneaky in some way. So she's saying, don't sneak around anymore. It is time for you to reveal your true self to your son. Now, she had been disguising him as this old beggar man, and that's who left the table. But who comes back to the table to finish breakfast is not going to be the same person. Let's resume. Saying no more, she tipped her golden wand upon the man, making his cloak pure white and the knit tunic fresh around him. Lithe and young she made him, ruddy with sun, his jawline clean, the beard no longer gray upon his chin, and she withdrew when she had done. Then Lord Odysseus reappeared, and his son was thunderstruck. Fear in his eyes, he looked down and away as though it were a god and whispered, "Stranger, you are no longer what you were just now. Your cloak is new, even your skin. You are one of the gods who rule the sweep of heaven. Be kind to us. We'll make you fair oblation and gifts of hammered gold. Have mercy on us." So Telemachus is not jazzed to see dear old dad. In fact, he doesn't really think it's dear old dad. Who does Odysseus believe has just, who does Telemachus believe has just walked back into brunch? Some sort of god, right? He literally said, you are one of the gods from out of the sweep of heaven. So to go away looking one way and come back looking another way, Telemachus is a little bit confused at what's going on. We're on line 1030. The noble and enduring man replied, "No god, why take me for a god? No, I am that father whom your boyhood lacked and suffered pain for lack of. I am he." Held back too long, the tears ran down his cheeks and he embraced his son. Only Telemachus, uncomprehending and wild with incredulity, cried out, "You cannot be my father, Odysseus. Meddling spirits conceived this trick to twist a knife in me. No man of woman born could work these wonders by his own craft unless a god came into it, with ease to turn him young or old at will. I swear you were in rags and old, and here you stand like one of the immortals." Odysseus brought his ranging mind to bear and said, "This is not princely, to be swept away by wonder at your father's presence. No other Odysseus will ever come, for he and I are one, the same. His bitter fortune and his wanderings are mine. 20 years gone, and I am back again on my own island. As for my change of skin, that is a charm Athena, hope of soldiers, uses as she will. She has the knack to make me seem a beggar man sometimes, and sometimes young with finer clothes about me. It is no hard thing for the gods of heaven to glorify a man or bring him low." When he had spoken, down he sat. Then, throwing his arms around this marvel of a father, Telemachus began to weep. Salt tears rose from the wells of longing in both men, and cries burst forth from both, as keen and fluttering as those of the great taloned hawk, whose nestlings farmers take before they fly. So helplessly they cried, pouring out tears, and might have gone on weeping so till sundown, had not Telemachus said, "Dear father, tell me, what kind of vessel put you here ashore on Ithaca? Your sailors, who were they? I doubt you made it walking on the sea." So let's pause right there for a second, because there's a section of this that I want to take a look at for an epic simile. So we are going to take a look at this little whiteboard situation here. And if you remember, there are different words that we can use for epic similes. So we have regular simile words like or as, but we also have two words that function for our epic similes, which were so or just so. So in that section that we just read, there was a part where two things are being compared, and we have one thing and then one of these guys being compared in the middle of it, and then we have another thing that is being compared. So I want us to look back at that page really quick. So we have our text right here. So let's start with line 1060, or below 1060, so 1061, where it says, salt tears rose from the wells of longing in both men, and cries burst from both, as keen and fluttering as those of the great taloned hawk, whose nestlings farmers take before they fly. So we have a comparison there of two things and one of those comparing words. So take a second to see if you can figure out what two things are being compared and what comparing word is being used. All right, so hopefully you've come up with a little something similar to this, where we have the two things being compared are the cries of the two men. So when Odysseus sits back down and Telemachus finally realizes who it is, oh my God, it's my dad, and they get to give each other a big hug. And obviously both of them start crying. They haven't seen each other, Odysseus, since Telemachus was a teeny tiny baby, and Telemachus probably has no memories of his father. And then it compares with the word as, and it compares their cries of longing to the cries of the hawks, whose nestlings, their baby hawks, have been taken by farmers. So the comparisons of the two men's cries while they hug each other being compared to the cries of a mother hawk whose babies have been stolen. So that's what that epic simile is showing to us. So we'll resume from there. Telemachus down here is asking about how his father came to be finally back home on Ithaca. We're on line 1072. Then said Odysseus, who had borne the barren sea, only plain truth shall I tell you, child. Great seafarers, the Phaeacians, gave me passage as they give other wanderers. By night, over the open ocean while I slept, they brought me in their cutter, set me down on Ithaca with gifts of bronze and gold and stores of woven things. By the gods' will, these lie all hidden in a cave. I came to this wild place, directed by Athena, so that we might lay plans to kill our enemies, suitors. Count up the suitors for me. Let me know what men at arms are there, how many men. I must put all to my mind to it to see if we too by ourselves can take them on, or if we should look round for help. So Odysseus is asking Telemachus, who can go back to the house, to tally up how many people they might face in battle if they were going to take on the suitors, just he and his son. Telemachus replied, "O father, all my life your fame as a fighting man has echoed in my ears, your skill with weapons and the tricks of war. But what you speak of is a staggering thing, beyond imagining for me. How can two men do battle with a houseful in their prime? For I must tell you, this is no affair of 10 or even twice 10 men, but scores, throngs of them. You shall see here and now." So pay attention to this part because we're going to do some math. And I want you to tally up how many suitors are living in Odysseus's house. You shall see here and now. The number from Dulichium alone is 52 picked men, with armorers half a dozen. 24 came from Same, 20 from Zycanthus. Our own island counts for 12, high-ranked and their retainers, met in the crier and the master harper, besides a pair of handymen at feasts. If we go in against all these, I fear we pay in salt blood for your vengeance. You must think hard if you would conjure up the fighting strength to take us through. So we're going to do some math. And we're going to go back over this section and see if we can't tell how many men that Odysseus and Telemachus would be taking on if they were to fight the suitors on their own. All right, so we're going to go through the math of how many suitors are in this house, because Telemachus says this is no affair of 10 or even 20 men, that there's like a bunch of dudes in our house. So here's what we've got. We've got this section of the poem, and so we got to do some math here. So we have the number from Dulichium, which these are weird sounding names, but they're just locations. The number from Dulichium alone is 52 picked men, with armorers half a dozen. How many is half a dozen? 6. 24 men came from the place called Same. 20 came from the place Zycanthus. Our own island, Ithaca, accounts for 12 high-ranked men and their retainers. So we have 12 high-ranked men and their retainers, which have names apparently. Medon the crier and the master harper are the 2 dudes. So we have the 12 from Ithaca and their 2, so that's 14 total from Ithaca, besides a pair of handymen at feasts. So at the very least, there's all these guys, and at the most, there's an extra pair of handymen at feast. So if we were to add all of that up, that means that there are 52 plus 6 plus 24 plus 20 plus 12 from Ithaca and their 2 retainers. So at the very least, there are 116 men. And if you add the extra 2 afterwards for the handymen at feasts, that means that there are 118 suitors in the house, all trying to get at Penelope, all hoping that they're going to be the new king of Ithaca, because they all assume that Odysseus is dead. So for Telemachus to say to his dad, hold on, Dad, like, I know you're super famous for your fighting skills, and that's a given, but like, there's a lot more guys than you probably think in this house. So Telemachus is a little skeptical at the idea that Odysseus wants to take on all of these suitors and fight and kill them with just Odysseus and Telemachus. So let's continue reading. We are here on line 1107. Odysseus, who had endured the long war and the sea, answered, I'll tell you now, suppose Athena's arm is over us, and Zeus's her father's. Must I rack my brains for more? Clear-headed Telemachus looked hard and said, these 2 are great defenders, no one doubts it, but throned in the serene clouds overhead, other affairs of men and gods they have to rule over. So think for a second. Why is it that Odysseus is so gung-ho, so sure that Athena is going to help him out and Zeus is going to help him out in this fight, but Telemachus is not quite feeling it? So why is it that Odysseus is so sure, but Telemachus is uncertain? So if you remember earlier, there was a section where Athena appeared to Odysseus and said, hey, go tell your son we're going to fight these dudes. And don't worry, I'll be nearby because I too desire battle. So we know that Athena is with it and she like volunteered her services. But Telemachus didn't get to hear that part. Only Odysseus did. So it's natural for Telemachus to be a little skeptical. And he also says, Dad, the gods have better things to do. Like, I'm glad you think they're going to help us, but what if they are a little bit busy doing other stuff? So neither Telemachus nor Odysseus have fully met eye to eye on this plan, but they're trying to come up with something to do to get rid of all the suitors. So let's continue. And the hero answered, before long they will stand to the right and left of us in combat, in the shouting when the test comes, our nerve against the suitors in my hall. Here is your part. At break of day tomorrow, home with you. Home with you. Go mingle with our princes. The swineherd, Eumaeus, later on will take me down the portside trail, a beggar by my looks, hand dog and old. If they make fun of me in my own courtyard, let your ribs cage up your springing heart, no matter what I suffer, no matter if they pull me by the heels or practice shots at me to drive me out. Look on and hold down your anger. You may even plead with them, by heaven, in gentle terms, to quit their horseplay, not that they will heed you, rash as they are, facing their day of wrath. Now fix the next step in your mind. Athena, counseling me, will give me word, and I shall signal to you, nodding. At that point, round up all armor, lances, gears of war left in our hall, and stow the lot away back in the vaulted storeroom. When the suitors miss those arms and question you, be soft in what you say. Answer, I thought I'd moved them out of the smoke. They seemed no longer those bright arms Odysseus left us years ago when he went off to Troy. Here, where the fire's hot breath came, they had grown black and drear. One better reason, too, I had from Zeus. Suppose a brawl starts up. When you are drunk, and you might be crazed and bloody one another, and that would stain your feast, your courtship. Tempered iron can magnetize a man. Say that, but put aside 2 broadswords and 2 spears for our own use, 2 oxhide shields nearby when we go into action. Pallas, Athena, and Zeus all provident will see you through, bemusing our young friends. Now, one thing more. If son of mine you are, and blood of mine, let no one hear that Odysseus is about, neither Laertes, nor the swineherd here, nor any slave, nor even Penelope. But you and I alone must learn how far the women are corrupted. We should know how to locate good men among our hands, the loyal and respectful, and the shirkers who take you lightly as alone and young. So Odysseus has laid out this whole plan, and it starts way back here with him saying, where does it go? Here is your part. So he's explaining to Telemachus everything that he expects him to do. It starts with Telemachus going back to his home, back to Odysseus's home where all the suitors are. And then it ends with, hopefully, all the suitors dead. But Odysseus also gives Telemachus a warning to not do something. So I want you to review what we just read in that section and make sure you know what the order is of the plan for Odysseus, because we're going to see it start to play out in these next episodes.